Good evening, brethren. I got to apologize right off the bat. You got to listen to me two what say ye's in a row, and it's his fault. I told him it was supposed to be every 6 months. That means I don't have to do it till April of 2017, but he has an issue with that. But we'll see. The topic I've decided to speak on this evening is God's love, the love of God. I know that it's a topic that can't be discussed in 8 or 12 minutes, or even if I run over some. But I just have a couple points I'd like to make that maybe you will think about and consider about how God could love us while we were yet sinners, and how he wants us to have love for others. And a question I want you to think about, and that is, do you think that God, in his infinite wisdom, would be willing to have something to happen in a wayward Christian's life that would maybe wake him up, bring him to reality, see where he is at? Would he be willing to do that? Think about those just for a minute. I remember when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, I heard a phrase that right as soon as I heard it, I thought about it. I've thought about it a lot of times since. I don't know, I heard it from an adult. I don't know if it's a member of the church or if it's just another adult. The phrase went, only a mother could love a teenager. Only a mother could love a teenager. How about that, moms? Dads were different. My dad was 81 years old. He lived in a different era as far as strictness and things like that. What I remember about him telling me one time was, let me tell you something, boy. You ever do anything and end up in jail for something that you've done? Well, your mom might visit you. You know what? He meant it. I know he did. I think I imparted that little tidbit to my son one time when he was doing something I didn't like. But back to moms. Moms, when you gave birth to that little baby, that beautiful baby boy or girl, the very first time that you held it in your hands and you looked down, you saw those bright eyes, that little nose and fingers and that beautiful face. What did you say in your mind to that child? Did you say, I am going to love you as long as I live? Did you say that? I'm going to love you for as long as I live. That's what we call mindset to love. What is a mindset? Do you know what a mindset is? I'm going to tell you what it is. Young people, you need to know also what a mindset is. It is a fixed mental attitude that predetermines how you're going to respond to situations that come up around you. A fixed mental attitude that predetermines how you're going to react when people are mean to you, they hate you, how they treat you. You've already determined how you're going to react. Do we have to have this to be able to love those that don't love us? Hold that in the back of your mind. We're going to come back to it. Now the question I ask, do you think that the Lord would be willing to have something happen in a wayward Christian's life that may help to wake them up, that they may realize where they're at? Anybody ever watch NCIS? Leroy Jethro Gibbs goes up behind Tony DiNozzo and gives him that smack in the back of the head. Wake up! Is the Lord willing to do that for us? I've got a story I need to tell. I've been trying to condense this story as short as I can to fit in the time space, and I didn't do very well, but I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. I remember when I was growing up, the mothers and so in the church had this network where everyone was looking out for the other one's kids. You watch out for mine, I'm watching out for yours. Anything happened, you're going to know. And they did. Normally, if you did something you wasn't supposed to do, by the time you got home, they were telling you what you did. That reminds me. Last fall, we was coming to church, Crystal and I, on a Wednesday evening, coming to church. Coming the old way out of town, out of Ravenswood, down by the old IGA where the dog pound is, the road up to Silver Hills. In the parking lot of the dog pound, there's a police cruiser, lights flashing, lights are flashing, lights are flashing. I drive by, look by, I said, will you look there? Sawyer Weekly got pulled over by the police. I looked at it, I said, "Hey, Sawyer." He didn't see me. So we went on to church. After church, Shane's there. Shane, come here. I had to tell Shane what happened. So when he got home, he already knew. Shane, did he tell you who told him? Love you, brother, I did. But this network was in when I was growing up too. And the story, it's true. The story I'm going to tell you is true. It's not made up in any way, shape, or form. I know this man that obeyed the gospel when he was 13 years old. He lived in Taze Valley, attended the Hurricane Church of Christ, which was on Midland Avenue in Hurricane. The congregation was probably 150, 175 people. And kids, they had a multitude of young people in that congregation. So as he was growing up, he always had friends in the church. Always had friends in the church, which is so good for young people to have, even the ornery ones. Even up through high school, he was playing football. There was 4 or 6 people that he played football, baseball with, whatever. Always had someone in the church. But he was unhappy. He felt that his parents was way too strict on him. And he decided when he graduated, he was leaving. You see, he couldn't have hair that even touched his collar. He had to have cut up the back. No mustache, no beard, nothing like that. You can't wear loud clothes. You wear normal clothes. You can't do this. You can't do that. I don't care what they're doing. You're not doing that. Well, he decided when he got 18, he'd leave it. And he went through school, graduated, was going to go to college. The parents said, "Son, stay here, commute. Free room, free board. There you go." But no, he decided, "I'm not doing that." He graduated high school at 17, turned 18 that summer, got an apartment in the big city, left, was going to be on his own, do what he wanted to do. So he went up there and went to college, and pretty soon he didn't have any friends that were members of the church. They were friends at college, friends in the city. He stopped going to church. He stopped doing the things he should and was doing things he shouldn't be doing. One day, he was 19 years old. He got a motorcycle. See, his mom and dad wouldn't let him have a motorcycle either. There he was, 19 years old. His hair started growing out. Had hair on his face. Motorcycle. 19 years old. Oh, he was cool. He thought he was way cool. He thought one day, it was summer of 1975, about 40 years ago. He said, "I'm going to leave here and go to Hurricane. I'm just going to drive around town, cruise around, go by the high school, and then I'll go by Mom's to get something to eat because he's always got something good to eat." So he did. Left that morning, went to Hurricane, drove through town, went by the high school. And he's following this person that was really driving slow. It was aggravating him to death. He said, "Well, when I get down the bottom of this hill from the high school, cross the bridge and go up this hill, I'm going to pass them. I'm going to get to Mom's to get something to eat." So he went down that little gap, pulled out, hit that throttle, and away he went, 40, 45, 50 miles an hour, and guess what? The car decided to make a left-hand turn to go up the subdivision where she lived. He had 2.5 seconds between the time that he said, "I can't stop," and the collision. He had time enough to let off the gas, brace his arms, and the beginning of the crash. And he don't remember nothing. It just went dark. He woke up on his back looking up at the blue sky. He couldn't breathe. There was no air in his lungs. Raised up and looked over to the right and said, "Is that flames? Is that motorcycle of mine burning?" And then he passed back out. He woke up again and he could breathe. That's good. He could breathe again. He rolled over to his side to get up. His right leg wasn't working right. He had to hobble up and get his leg under him. And this guy, all he wore was a helmet, sunglasses, and cut-off shorts. Is all he had on. And the pants had snaps on them, and he couldn't snap his pants that were down. He was trying to snap it. Every time he pushed to snap it, the bone in his arm was pushing out to the side, where he'd snapped the bone in his arm in two. So he had to hold him there, and kids from down at the school came home, pulled over, helped him, snapped his pants, put him in the car, and took him up top the hill where, they called the ambulance for him. And I told you about that network that they had at the church. Well, his mom got a phone call. Your son's been in a motorcycle wreck. The motorcycle exploded. It's burning down here in the field. How about that, moms? Wouldn't you love to hear that? Like a shot, she was down there. The police were there. The lady that he had sideswiped was hysteric, thought that he was dead. The firemen were just getting there to put out the fire. She went to the policeman, and the policeman said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, we don't know where your son is. We can't find him." Of course, he was up on top of the hill where they'd called the police up there in the fire department. Leave that there a minute and come back down. The police did an investigation of the wreck. Well, it was a little bit later. But they found that when he had sideswiped the car, he ended up in this big field, flat field. It had about 2.5 foot little bank there to get to it. And there was a telephone pole set right here, 42.5 inches. And there was an 8 to 10 inch steel metal pole that had the subdivision sign on it. Telephone pole, 42.5 inches, steel pole. Where do you suppose that motorcycle went? Right dead between the poles. Went through the poles, hit that hill. The motorcycle went one way, he went the other, did this aerobic thing through the air, flopping, pounding on the ground. Why didn't God let him die when he hit that car? Why didn't he let him hit that telephone pole or that steel pole or stay on that motorcycle when it exploded and burnt? Or when he was flopping on the ground and landed? Why did he save his life? Up there on the hill, the police came, where the EMTs came. He had a broken pelvic, broke his arm in two. He had cuts and gashes all over him because he didn't have anything on but the cut-offs and the helmet. He had internal injuries, bruised his lungs, his kidneys, his bladder. He's a mess. It was going to take him a year, at least a year to recover. At least a year to recover. He wasn't going to live in the big city anymore. He was going to have to move back home with mom and dad. And see, what he didn't know is while he was in the hospital, his dad's office moved to Ripley, West Virginia. And they moved from Hurricane to Fairplain, actually 3.5 miles up Grass Lick Road. So he had to move from the city to the country to recover. After about 2.5 months of recovering, with his mom's encouragement, he said, "Okay, yes, I'll go to church with you." So he started going to church with his mom, who attended Kaiser and Douglas Avenue over in Ravenswood. And he had a cast up to his shoulder here, had a crutch with it, had a crutch on this arm. The auditorium's about the size of this, a little bit bigger, had 2 sets of pews like this. He'd come in and sit about where Brother Jackie is on the end so he could get in and out, okay. And lo and behold, on this other side, there was this young teenage girl. She had heard that this guy was going to start coming with his mom. He rode motorcycles. He's from the city, had long hair, beard. She looked over at him. He looked mean. She's afraid of him. Every time he would come out to leave after services, if he came toward the front, someone talked to him, she would go all the way against the wall with her back against the wall and would watch him. If he came this way, she slid that way to go out the back door. If he turned to go back, she was at the wall going this way. Wherever he was, she wasn't. She was afraid of him. I don't know if she was married to Daryl yet or not. Cindy, were you married to Daryl then? She was. She was married to Daryl. But he did come around. He realized that he was lost. And he and Cindy and Daryl and had kids together, grew up together. I've called her men for many years. You ever watched a long time ago, I'm dating myself, Robin Williams, when the comedian, his first show was Mork and Mindy. He would always get into trouble, want to do something, and she wouldn't let him, and he'd get, "Come on, man." Well, she always thought me and Daryl got into stuff. I don't know where she got that, but we were doing something, and she was saying, "No, you're not." And I said, "Come on, man." So she's been men ever since. That's pretty good. I'm going to go back now to the mindset we was talking about. The mindset of how God could love us while we were yet sinners. And how does he want us to love others? We ask ourselves sometimes when we read in Romans chapter 5, verses 8 and 9, where it says, "But God demonstrates his own love toward us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Much more than having now been justified by his blood, we shall be saved from the wrath of God through him." How else did God love us? Look at John 3:16, 17. "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send the Son into the world to judge the world, but that the world might be saved through him." How does God expect us to love? We're talking about this mindset where, what is a mindset? It's a fixed mental attitude that predetermines how we're going to respond to whatever happens. Why are you going to respond when someone mistreats you? Luke chapter 6, verse 27 and 28. "But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those that hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those that mistreat you." Same chapter, verses 31 through 36. "Treat others the same way you want them to treat you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love them that love those that love them. If you do love those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners in order to receive back the same manner. But love your enemies, and do good and lend, and expecting nothing in return. For your reward will be great, and you'll be the sons of the Most High. For he himself is kind to ungrateful, evil men. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful." I'm going to leave you with one more reading from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. "Love is patient. Love is kind and is not jealous. Love does not brag and is not arrogant. Love does not act unbecomingly. It does not seek its own. It is not provoked. Love does not take into account a wrong suffered. Love does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things." Thank you, brother.